Hi, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to what I believe is my 5th show review video. This video will be reviewing the 3rd show that I was at. Once more, if you haven't listened to the prior videos, please at least listen to the first couple, because I describe how the games are played in a little bit more detail. I also explain things like why my voice sounds kind of funny, and other things such as set design and whatnot. Please forgive me because it is getting awfully late here, and I am rather tired and a little bit looped up on cold medication, so I'm doing my best. So I appreciate you sticking with me and listening to these, and I hope you're enjoying them, or at least somewhat, and that it's giving you a little bit of information. So here we go with the 3rd show I was at, which was the late show on January 14th of 2011. Again, this show had Drew Carey, Kathy Kinney, Chip Eston, Brad Sherwood, Colin Mockery, and Jeff B. Davis as the performers. As always, they began the show with the game of freeze tag, which is a really good game to start things off because it is a little bit more rapid fire. It gets fast laughs every few seconds or so. And I really enjoy freeze tag. And it also helps to warm up the audience as well, which I think is why they play it first. The second game was with Kathy Kinney and Colin Mockery, and they did New Choice. And it seems that I forgot to write down what the setting was. The third game was pulling up an audience member and doing a song for them. And this one had Brad, Jeff, and Chip all singing. And it was in this form of a doo-wop. Yes. The fourth game that was played was Forward Reverse with Drew and Chip. And I remember that forward reverse being probably one of the best forward reverses I've ever seen. That will be probably a classic when it is aired, if it's aired. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that they air that particular one, because it was very, very, very funny. I don't remember who called it, but whoever did the calling was very clever with their calling. A lot of, forward and reverse with silly things that were said and done that they had to keep doing over and over and over again. And you never got tired of it because it was that funny. And that the ways they were saying stuff and making faces. And there were also things like, slow motion and super fast motion, high squeaky to slow motion. And, the way they changed their voices and facial expressions and everything. It's forward reverse, I think, will become a game that everyone will just really love because it is so funny. It's always funny. Then they did Question This, again, which is a game that was formerly known as Jeopardy, and it had everyone but Kathy Kinney. Then they did Sound Effects again, and they had Kathy and Chip, and this time they were park rangers. The seventh game was called Bob's Call, which is a new game. It was also called briefly Guitar Hero, which it's not being called that for obvious legal reasons. On Whose Line, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a form of a musical where, two players would be performing a scene. It was typically Ryan and Colin on Whose Line. And then Drew would freeze the scene and stop them and have them do it and insert a musical piece based on whatever what was just said. So in this game, Bob Durkash, who I've failed to mention until this point, and shame on me, because I really should have mentioned him. He is doing all the music for every single show. He's taking the place of, Richard Branch for the UK, and Laura Hall and Linda Taylor for the US. Bob Durkash is musical genius, insanely talented, and a very sweetheart guy, like all of them. He does all the shows of Who's Live Anyway. He travels with them. He also worked as a part of Second City for decades. Please look up Bob Durkash on the internet and find out more information about him. I don't want to give any more information about him in case I misquote or give false information. I do ask that you please look him up, because he does not get enough recognition, and he definitely deserves more recognition and praise for the work that he does. Anyway, so this game was called Bob's Call, and again, it had Colin and Kathy, and they were riding on a gondola boat, and anytime, they might be having a conversation, and if Bob started to play a song, whatever was just said had to be turned into a small musical number. I'm not a huge fan of the musical games. I never was when it came to Who's Line, but I absolutely love Bob's Call. And the way that it was done is just brilliance. Absolutely stellar. So I hope that everyone looks forward to the Bob's Call games especially. The 8th game that was played was again Moving People, with Drew and Brad, and they were on a boat, which I just think is kind of funny because the one before that was on a gondola, and then it was on a boat. I just now realized that. The 9th game was Sentences again, with Chip and Jeff, and there were just 2 people at a bar, I believe. Oh, I have a star by this, and I know why. I don't mean to toot my own horn or anything, but I did write some sentences for this one, including a sentence that really made the game quite funny, because I believe a lot of fans will like it, because my sentence was, "My son is a velociraptor who plays the banjo." And that sentence was read, and Colin Mockery jumped into the scene doing his famous dinosaur impression as the velociraptor, which got a huge cheer and roar of applause from the audience. And so the Colin dinosaur lived yet again, and it was fabulous. And except this time it was playing a banjo, which made it even better. That whole scene of sentences was probably my absolute favorite version of sentences that whole time. And my friend and I actually got in multiple sentences that night. So very, very good sentences, which I think will be probably one of the most memorable games from the new series. Or so I'm hoping, because it was very good. The 10th game that was played was called First Date with Kathy and Drew. This is a game that was played on Improv AllStars. If you ever went to the Improv AllStars live shows, basically they pull up a married couple from the audience, and they ask them a bunch of questions and find out everything that they can about how their first date ever went down and how they met. And then the performers, 2 of them, will reenact that first date, and the 2 audience members can either ring a bell for yes or honk a horn for no, in correlation of whether or not what they're doing is correct or not. First Date I was never very much fond of when they used to play it, but I've grown much more fond of it recently. So excuse me. First Date, it was quite fun. I'm glad they brought it back, because they don't play it that often, but it added a little bit of variety to the show. And so I hope that you guys will like it as well when you see it. Then Greatest Hits was Hits of the Steelworker. It was Colin and Jeff doing the advertising, and Brad and Chip doing the singing. And the styles that they did were a Western, a Mambo, and 70s rock. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my third show review. So please, join me for my next video. I have 4 more videos to do, 4 more shows to review. And then that will be all for right now until Super Bowl weekend. So, thank you. And, yes, thank you for your time. Bye.